Okay, so now that we've discussed how we're going to approach the hand rig, in this video I'd like to set up both the finest level of control and the middle level of control on a single finger manually. So let's jump over into Houdini, and I'm going to set this up for finger 1. So let's go ahead and apply our FK controls tool to finger 1. So I'm going to hunt down finger 1, and we want to start with finger 1 underscore bone 1 as the start of the bone chain, and grab finger 1 underscore bone 3 as the end of the bone chain. That will apply our FK controls. Let's move these in the network editor to make it a little bit more clear as to what they are doing. Fantastic. Then we can grab all of these guys, and we want to give them a blue wireframe color, since we are dealing with the left hand side of our character. Now the top control, finger 1, bone 1 control, that's fine, that is a 3-axis freedom of motion, but the next two controls we do need to go ahead and lock their rotate Y and rotate Z, since we only want to rotate on X, and then we can adapt their orientation to the YZ plane to indicate that we can only rotate on Z. Only rotate on X. So now that we have that in place, we can see that we can come in and we can work with these controls and rotate these controls in order to rotate our bones. Fantastic. So that's going to rotate our bones, but we want to go ahead and get that middle level of control set up, and that middle level of control really works in a very similar way to the FK control for our top bone. So instead of creating a control from scratch, I'm simply going to duplicate our L underscore finger 1 underscore bone 1 underscore FK control and create our control from that. So let's Control C, Control V to duplicate that control. And since this is going to control our finger as a whole, I'm going to name it L underscore finger 1 underscore FK control. We can then take our existing control object, and we already have keep position when parenting checked. Let's parent it to that newly created FK control. The very small rotations that come in due to inaccuracies we can simply zero out. And then we have both the new control object and the original control object. Now if we rotate the original control, that is going to rotate our finger. If we rotate the new control, it will rotate our other control object, but it won't rotate the finger, and that's because of the way that our FK controls are set up. Our FK control is set up to generate rotation parameters, and those rotation parameters are referenced on the finger, as opposed to referencing the actual final orientation of this control. So just because the control is changing in orientation doesn't mean that the bone is changing in orientation. We simply reference the rotation values. That means that we need to go in and affect our bone with both of these controls. Now to affect the bone with our finger control, we can simply parent our finger bone, keeping position when parenting, parent the top of that bone chain into that control object. That means now if we come in and rotate that control object, we affect the bone chain. Let's undo that. But also if we come in and rotate our other control object, we affect the bones because of the fact that we're affecting that bone based on our rotation. So now both of these control objects are going to control that bone chain. But if we notice, if we rotate one control object, this control object, the original FK control, has rotated to indicate that change in orientation, which we wouldn't get if we didn't have that original FK control parented underneath the newly created control. So we have one last thing that we need to do on both of our lower fingers. We need to take their rotate X expression, and we need to add on to that the new rotate X parameter of that new control. So we're going to add on to that L underscore finger 1 underscore FK control, and we want to take its rotate in X. So we want to grab its rotate X. So that's L underscore finger 1 underscore FK control rotate X. If we accept that, now when we rotate our overall control object, if we grab our overall control object, if we rotate that in X, and that's actually named itself to FK control 1, so we want to delete that 1 off the end so our reference is correct. You can see that we have now got that bone rotating in X as well as the first bone, because of the fact that the first bone is parented underneath and the second bone is referencing that rotation in X. We can go ahead and do the same for the third bone. So I'm going to grab that rotation parameter for the second bone and copy the end part where we add on that newly created rotation X. And on our third bone in rotate X, I'm going to go ahead and paste in that add finger 1 underscore FK control rotate X if we accept that. So now if we were to grab that very top control level and rotate it, that's going to rotate all of the bones together. If we rotate on Y or indeed on Z, that will rotate the chain as a whole. Then if we come in with our other FK controls, we have fine control over each of the bones. Now don't worry that both of these controls exist in the exact same space. We're only ever going to see one set of controls at a time. We're going to have a level of detail parameter that allows us to see one of the 3 levels or even none of those levels of control, and we only get to see one at a time, which means that we're not ever going to see both of these controls at the same time. So it doesn't matter that they exist in the exact same space. So with that, that is going to conclude the manual setup of that first finger. In the next video, we're going to go ahead and automate this process by writing a small Python tool that will set up the other 3 fingers for us. But that will conclude this video. Thanks a lot, everyone.